Previously on WCast. Today I'll be visiting the Rancho Palos Verdes, California City Hall to see if they have building records and filming permits for the Portuguese Point estate. Here we are. Hey, welcome back to WCast. It's good to be back. During this last month, I've been hanging out back east. Now that that's over, it's good to feel enlightened. Last week, we talked about some of the dark secrets that swirl underneath the tranquil surface of the Big W. But that was all questions, not answers. So sit back, relax, and we'll take a journey back through time into the history of the Portuguese Point estate. The estate began its life as a gatehouse and quarters for the servants of the powerful Vanderlip family, giants in the early California real estate industry. The Vanderlips wanted to build an unprecedented home of epic proportions tucked away in the beautiful Palos Verdes hills. They built the relatively small gatehouse in 1928 or 1929, but were stopped short in the construction of their planned dream residence by the Great Depression. The gatehouse was turned into a residential home. In 1962, the formerly drab backyard was transformed into a lush park, the movie was filmed, and that was it. What's particularly interesting, though, is the period between 1962 and the present. When the City Hall employee lugged out the file for me, he remarked that it was at least 5 inches thick! What was even more amazing was that the file only seemed to cover about 1980 to 1990. Looking through the documents, things became stranger and stranger. The file vaguely stated that the house had last been sold around 1990 or 1991. Pretty weird, huh? I couldn't find any mention of the current owner anywhere. And this blueprint that shows everything down to the dead Big W doesn't prove a thing. Instead, 2 new names in the case came up. Clarinita Burt Hickson and Michael J. Lightman. The plot thickens. First, let's learn a little bit more about dear old Clarinita. Clarinita was an aging woman who found herself the owner of Portuguese Point in the 1980s. Regarded as very nice by a fan of the movie visiting in 1984, Clarinita had a dream: to host weddings underneath the Big W. In fact, she was one of the key people in putting an end to nude sunbathing in the Portuguese Point area. In this letter, believed to be written in her own hand, she complains about the endless tide of nudists streaming past her property, her high esteem in the property's historical value, and her wish to hold weddings, conferences, and meetings in the former Santa Rosita State Park. Even though her argument for historical preservation sounded believable enough, it was clear that the weddings were more important to her. This theory is proven by a caustic letter to the mayor of Rancho Palos Verdes from angry homeowners. In it, we find that Miss Hickson made a request to change the historical restrictions on our property so that she could build a wedding parlor and remodel the aging home. She was told that she couldn't even host weddings there anymore. Even though she tried to get her grand wedding ideas realized, it was to no avail. The charming 74-year-old woman simply kept fulfilling her dream anyway, and continued to do so until she found herself behind bars. When she got out of jail, she found a padlock on the door of her estate. This sad newspaper article chronicles the downward spiral of her life. At this point, Clarinita Hickson left the story and Michael J. Lightman arrived, buying the property in its then decrepit backyard. He promptly fixed up the backyard and put in an illegal pool, spa, and horse barn. Legal troubles quickly followed, and I can't be sure exactly what happened, but the pool and spa are still there today. As for the horse barn, it is currently in use as a storage shed. It was built in 1986 to resemble the facade of Portuguese Point. The shed violated building regulations and, to the best of my knowledge, has not been completed to this day. While all these secret legal woes were going on, the 1991 documentary was filmed, showing the property at its best. At the very least, Mr. Lightman had a green thumb. Details after then are shadowy and blurred, but we do know that the house was sold to the current owner in about 1990 or 1991 for a cool $750,000. And that's tax-free money. Bazow! Since then, the property hasn't been well kept up and nothing interesting or notable has happened. So there you have 50 years of Portuguese Point history in a nutshell. Although that's the end of this 2-part episode on the detailed history of the Big W, make sure to tune in for episode 2 of the W Mystery in the coming weeks. As for announcements, I have 3. First, Ron K. Wall just released his taken photos on the Big W and Peck Park scenes. Even though he only has aerial photos to work with when matching up scenes, he did an excellent job on finding camera locations. He even found this scene, which I only realized the location of after I left the property. I highly recommend checking out the photos at the link in the description, and my video taken at the Big W here. Second, here's another development in the missing "that was my husband's car" scene. Last night I was looking through one of my souvenir programs and discovered something interesting. Barry Chase's character is listed as Mrs. Halliburton. So there you have it. Barry Chase's character is married. Third, I'm sad to report that Steve Jobs cashed in his microchips on October 5th. Although he had nothing to do with Mad World, at least to my knowledge, WCast wouldn't have been possible without him and his incredibly intuitive and fun technology. Thanks, Steve. And last but not least, it's time for the WCast comment question of the day, which is, whose side are you on in the Lightman and Hickson arguments? If you're not sure, go like WCast on Facebook for more detailed documentation. Make sure to leave your answer in the comments section below, and thanks for watching WCast! Why did poor Clarinita go to jail? She was so innocent! Wait a minute. She was breaking the law!